Where we teach and elevate the Bible using digital media, and today we're continuing our series in the book of Mark. We are in Mark 13, which is a long prophecy that applies to the disciples' near future and also a future not yet realized. However, the most important part of this scripture is a command that Jesus is very adamant about that we really tend not to live by. As Jesus leaves the temple, his disciples admire the beauty and magnificence of it, and it was indeed both those things. The temple sat in a 35-acre complex. The stones that the disciples referred to would have weighed 100 tons. As a reference, the biggest stones in the Egyptian pyramids weighed 2.5 tons. The historian Josephus describes these stones to be 60 feet long. The most beautiful part of the temple would have been the sanctuary that was adorned with gold and silver and painted in purples and reds. It was described to actually shine in the sun. What's crazy is that Jesus says that all of this magnificence is going to be completely destroyed, which would have been staggering to hear. And very naturally, the disciples ask him when all these things are going to happen. Jesus proceeds to prophesy, and this is where this passage gets tricky, because part of it refers to an immediate future that the disciples are going to experience, and part of it refers to the eschatological future. Eschatology is a fancy word that refers to parts of the Bible that address the end times. Don't worry, that's the last time we're going to use that word. It gets trickier because Jesus prophesies about the near future as a sign for his disciples to leave Jerusalem, but also as a sign that the end times have begun to come. To make things worse, Jesus jumps from talking about the destruction of the temple to talking about the end times without any apparent transition. To make all of this easier for you, we put together a handy outline that explains which parts he talks about what. If this is all confusing, do not worry, because we're going to cover this more in depth in our podcast. But I do want you to walk away with this. The most important part of this passage is actually the easiest one to understand. But concerning that day or that hour, no one knows. Not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Be on guard, keep awake, for you do not know when the time will come. It is like a man going on a journey, when he leaves home and put his servants in charge, each with his work, and commands the doorkeeper to stay awake. Therefore, stay awake, for you do not know when the master of the house will come, in the evening, or at midnight, or when the rooster crows, or in the morning, lest he come suddenly and find you asleep. And what I say to you, I say to all, stay awake. This is referencing the end times, and what Jesus says here is that we ought to live our lives constantly mindful that this time could come at any moment. If we're honest, we don't really live like that. How many of us, when we wake up in the morning, actually think that this may be the last day that we're here? This may be the last video that I ever make. Seriously. Jesus is adamant about this. 3 times he tells his disciples to stay awake. He wants us to be ready for when he comes back. And the question is, are we really awake?